All right, let's get right into it. There's a huge global headline making the rounds right now, and honestly, it's got a lot of people scratching their heads. So let's break this down. You see, Iran's big public fight is with Israel and the United States, right? But then you look at the news, and suddenly missiles are hitting places like Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. On the surface, it doesn't add up. So what's really going on? Well, according to Iran, there's a very specific reason for this. They've come out and said, hey, we're not targeting Arab nations at all. Our targets are the American military bases inside those nations. And that changes everything. Okay, but that just opens up a whole new can of worms, doesn't it? It leads to a much bigger, much more fundamental question. Why are there massive American military bases scattered all over the Middle East in the first place? To get to the bottom of that, we actually have to rewind the clock, way back. Over 100 years, in fact. So let's start with Chapter 1, The Age of Puppets. This is all about how the British basically wrote the playbook for this kind of thing. So, picture this. World War I is over. The Ottoman Empire, which had been the major Muslim power for centuries, just collapses. Suddenly, the British Empire is in control of all this Arab territory. But they had a problem. They knew, for sure, that the local people were not going to be happy with foreign rulers. So, they had to get creative. And this was their brilliant, or maybe cynical, solution. The deal was basically this. Look, you can be the king, you get the palace, you build the roads, you have the title. But our army, sitting in our military bases right here on your land, we hold the real power. It was a masterclass in indirect control. Okay, so fast forward to after World War II, the British Empire is starting to fade, it's losing its grip, but right as they're on their way out, a new superpower is rising, and they're watching very, very closely. At first, the US presence was pretty small. The official story was, hey, we're just here to protect the oil supplies. But behind the scenes, the ambition was so much bigger. The real plan was to take that British playbook and not just copy it, but to scale it up in a massive way. And this base strategy is absolutely key to understanding everything that follows. Think about it. It gives you all the power and control over a region without the headache and the bad press of actually occupying it. But here's the thing. It wasn't a done deal. For decades, powerful Arab leaders, guys like King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, they said no way. They completely resisted the idea of having huge, permanent American bases on their land. So for this grand plan to work, America needed an excuse. They needed a crisis so big, so scary, that it would force those reluctant Arab kings to finally say yes. And that crisis, that perfect excuse, was about to walk right onto the world stage. His name was Saddam Hussein. And this is where the story gets really wild. Some analysts call it Saddam's trap. Here's the theory. On one hand, the American ambassador supposedly told Saddam's government that the U.S. wouldn't get involved in their dispute with Kuwait, calling it an Arab matter. Saddam took that as a green light. But on the other hand, the alleged U.S. plan was to use that very invasion as the perfect justification to scare the other Arab kings into finally accepting American bases. And boom, it played out just like that. Step 1, Saddam invades Kuwait, and it's over in 2 days. Step 2, the U.S. allegedly goes to the other Arab leaders, shows them these scary satellite photos, and says, "You're next. Saddam's coming for you." Step 3, they make an offer. "We can protect you, but there's a condition." And you can probably guess step 4, you have to let us build large, permanent military bases on your soil. Backed into a corner, the Arab kings agreed. The U.S. military poured in. They pushed Saddam out of Kuwait. And then, they just didn't leave. The temporary solutions suddenly looked very, very permanent. And just look at this map of power. Major, permanent bases popped up in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE. This wasn't a temporary mission anymore. This was the finish line, the successful end of a plan decades in the making to build a permanent American military foothold right in the heart of the Arab world. And you have to understand, for the last 3 decades, these bases have been anything but quiet. They've been the launch pads, the central hubs for basically every major American military operation in the region. We're talking Afghanistan, the invasion of Iraq, bombing campaigns in Syria, the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, strikes in Yemen, the list just goes on and on. And that brings us right back to today. This is the big aha moment. Iran claims it's not just randomly firing missiles, it's attacking this very system, this network of bases that it sees as the core infrastructure of American and Israeli power in its backyard. And these are not random potshots. The attacks are incredibly strategic. They're going after the big ones. Camp Arif John in Kuwait, which is like America's biggest warehouse for weapons in the region. Al Udeid in Qatar, the massive command and control center for everything. And Al Dhafra in the UAE, a major hub for fighter jets and bombers. They're hitting the nerve centers. And the cost is staggering. We're talking about a single advanced radar system in Qatar that Iran claims it destroyed. Estimated value, $1 billion. Taking out just one piece of gear like that is a huge hit to the U.S. military's eyes and ears in the region. Now, what's really fascinating is how they're doing it. The strategy is so sophisticated. It's this brilliant 1-2 punch. First, they launch a whole swarm of cheap, slow drones. The point of these is just to be decoys, to overwhelm the air defense systems and make them super busy. Then, while all the defenses are distracted, they launch the real killers, hypersonic missiles that move faster than the speed of sound. By the time you see them, it's pretty much too late. So this all leads to a brand new reality. I mean, think about it. For the first time in something like 40 years, you have a regional power that is directly, openly, and repeatedly attacking the symbols of American power. This completely changes the game in the Middle East. And Iran's leadership has put it in no uncertain terms. Their supreme leader basically said, as long as American bases are in these Muslim countries, this war will continue. It doesn't get much clearer than that. They see the bases themselves as the problem, and they're not backing down. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with this really powerful question. These bases, this whole system, was designed a century ago to provide stability and project power. But now, that very infrastructure of power has become the #1 target, turning the solution into the battlefield. What happens next? Honestly, nobody knows for sure, but the answer to that question is being written as we speak, in real time, with every missile that's launched.